But the Banishim is not an entity which exists like everything else. Everything else is an entity. It means it has an essence, a mahus, which describes what that thing is, characteristics, which make that thing to be what it is. And those, that entity exists. The Banishim is not an entity which exists, because in that sense, he possesses existence. But rather, the Banishim fundamentally is existence itself. He's the entity of existence. When you think existence, just a constant existence refers to a certain aspect. And he is that aspect. He therefore is existence itself. Now we said that there's really a level higher than that. So therefore, because he is existence, you cannot say God is. You see, because God is means that there's an entity which possesses existence. That's not true of the Banishim. So the only thing you can say of the Banishim is God, or combine the is with the God, so it's like one word, which cannot be done by the human language. By the human mind can only understand beings which exist, which possess existence. We cannot understand a being which is existence itself, where existence itself is the being. You see, we cannot understand that. So, in order to describe the Banishim according to that language, according to that concept, you have to find a word or a certain grammatical rule where the subject and predicate is the same word, and that doesn't exist at all. But essentially, that's what you'd have to say about the Banishim. Now there's a higher madrega in Hasaga than that, in terms of Yichudai. To understand this is to understand a certain madrega in Hasaga is Yichudai, the Yichud of Banishim. Because if the Banishim is existence itself, he cannot have been brought into a being. You cannot bring existence into existence. It exists. Existence means it is. You don't bring that in, because that's what exist means. It is. And there can't be another one. You can't have two existences. Existence is. It's the simplest and most fundamental thing. So that's it. That answers those basic things. So what we've achieved by understanding that is a level of hasagas yichudai. That's what it means. Yichud haborei. There is no other. Ein acher. Ein oid milvadoi. You see. Now there's a madrega of hasagas yichudai even higher than that. And that's what you want to know. And the one higher than that is fundamentally, even if we think of the Banishim as the existence itself, the entity of existence itself, not an entity which possesses existence, but existence itself is the Banishim, right? Fundamentally, when we think of existence,
it's an essence.
It itself has an essence, because it's a concept. Existence itself is a concept, which means that it has an essence. An essence is composed of characteristics. You see, that means, you see,
so that we can even understand what existence means.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't think
that means that the concept existence possesses existence. Now, how can existence possess existence?
Think of existence as
it cannot. It doesn't make sense. How can existence possess existence? Existence is existence. So therefore, what we basically see is the following: that however the Banishim exists cannot be understood by the mind, because even if we think of him as pure existence, our understanding of existence is itself an entity, and we understand existence as an entity which exists. You see, so we can't get around that. We can't get around that. You see, you understand? We're like in a circle. We can't get out of that circle. We cannot understand something. Our understanding, human mind, understands entities which possess existence. That's the way the mind thinks.
And that's no matter what type of mind, no matter
and even
how
if that entity is existence itself, the concept, or is existence itself, you see, we understand it in a sense where it has an essence that has characteristics, and that essence possesses existence. You see, we can't get around it.
It's like you're assuming that there's something else that we don't know, right?
Well, obviously, the Banishim, whatever the existence that he has is not subject to human understanding. So even when we say that the Banishim is existence itself, it's not really true. You see, because the way we understand existence itself is an entity, and the Banishim is not an entity which possesses existence. You see what I'm saying? It's,
you're saying that there must be something that we don't see.
Yeah.
Why?
No. What I'm simply saying is that the Banishim is existence itself. You grasp that.
Yeah.
You grasp that. Why is the existence itself? Because the Banishim does not possess existence. I mean, he doesn't possess it. He's not an entity.
You're saying the understanding of existence is something.
Is an entity.
Right.
No, it's not an entity, it's a concept.
It's a concept. The concept of an entity with the concept. And that concept means it's an entity which exists.
It's only because our human mind gives certain characteristics to existence.
Yes, therefore, so what that means is that the Rebbeinu Shem is not existence itself, because existence itself, the way we understand it, is a concept, and a concept. Every concept has an essence, which describes what that being is, what makes it to be what it is, which also possesses existence. You see, the concept exists. Existence exists in the human mind. The concept of existence exists in our mind. That's why we understand it.
But this is just words, really. I mean, what?
Yes, we can't go beyond. There's not words. It's not. Those words symbolize the mental operation of thinking. You see, that's how we understand things.
When they tell you existence, you think of something.
They tell the word existence, you automatically make.
When we think of the concept of existence itself, right?
Yeah.
Where we understand it. Understanding it means we understand something called existence, which exists.
And you're saying we can't claim to really understand what that is?
No, we can understand that. You see, we can understand that. But the Rebbeinu Shem is not that. The Rebbeinu Shem does not exist. You see, the Rebbeinu Shem does not exist. He's not an entity which possesses existence. He's existence itself in the purest form. In whatever, but that form is so pure that it's even beyond our concept of existence. It's beyond the way we understand existence.
Even this is the highest limit that the human mind can go.
Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Again.
No, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, the existence of God, the existence of Rebbeinu Shem is such that it's beyond the way we understand existence. Because the way we understand existence means we understand a concept called existence, and as we understand that concept, we understand that it is. The concept is. Existence is. It exists.
Well, I don't really understand it.
What's that?
What do you mean? I don't really understand what existence is.
But when you think of existence itself, in back of that concept is existence. It's the fact that it is. It's the fact that the idea is. You see.
I don't know why this is eluding me.
It's because it's very subtle. It just takes you a quick to grab it, and that's it. It'll hit you, you know.
I think I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't really. I don't know.
The whole thing is the words have a limit on it because we're talking about something that is beyond what we can talk about.
Why do you assume that there's something that we don't understand?
No, because the existence of the Rebbeinu Shem is not the way we understand pure existence itself. That's what it is. Because pure existence itself, right, is a being which exists.
So good.
Okay, but that's not the Rebbeinu Shem, because the Rebbeinu Shem is existence itself in such a way where it doesn't possess existence. But the best we can do when we understand existence is a being called existence which exists. Therefore, that's not the Rebbeinu Shem, because if the Rebbeinu Shem is existence, he does not possess existence. What?
How could you possibly say that he exists if he is existence? Is that what you think?
No. What I'm saying is the way we understand the concept of existence, when we think of the word existence itself, when we think of the concept of being, to be, to exist,
right,
that is not the Rebbeinu Shem. Because that is a concept of something which is.
No, if you would come up with a word which we really don't
something
understand.
Something which is, you see. And the Rebbeinu Shem is not a something which is. He's not an essence which because the way we understand existence, something has to bring that into being too.
Let's assume for a second that there was a person who has the understanding of the Rebbeinu Shalom that we humans don't have. He wouldn't be able to explain it either, according to what you're saying.
No, no one can understand that. There is no being in the world which can
understand a being like that in the previous and all times.
No, what do you mean? There is nothing under the Rebbeinu Shalom himself that can understand him. Because everything under him, meaning everything which is created by him, is an entity which was given existence.
And he gives only limited existence.
You see, the thing exists by virtue of the fact that he gave it existence.
Can he put into someone's mind the possibility for him to think beyond that concept?
No.
Why not?
It would be God.
It's just a matter of being able to think it.
No, because thinking of that concept, to think of a concept means to think that this thing, whatever the concept is a something, and that something is. For example,
what does it mean to have something that you don't understand, that it's not possible to understand?
Because it's beyond concept. It's beyond concept.
What does that mean?
That means that We know.
Is it too intricate and complicated for us to
No,
follow?
it's beyond our experience.
So if we saw something like
For
that.
example, for example, right? I'll give you an example. Can you think of something which does not exist in time or space?
Or has no
Yeah,
substance.
song.
No. That's all. Song exists in time and space.
You can't think of it, obviously, but who says you can't experience
But
it?
can you experience a thing? No. Can't. Why? Because you're subject to that. Okay, fine.
As soon as you experience it, you didn't.
What's that?
As soon as you experience it, you approach it. For example, you approach minus 273 Kelvin. As you approach it, the number gets larger. But you can approach it.
Can you approach it?
Sure, you
Can you approach you can't approach it for the simple reason that the vehicle or the instrument you use to approach it is limited. The instrument in which we understand reality is the human mind. And the mind understands reality in a certain way. It understands reality in terms of concepts. This, that, all kinds of millions of concepts, millions of ideas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Each idea is composed of an essence. Right? It defines what it is. And the fact that essence is. It's not that it has to be reality, but it is. When you think of an essence, you're thinking of something which is. It is in the mind. It has ising. It has existence in the mind at least, so it has existence. You see.
Yeah.
The mind cannot understand a thing, you see, which does not possess existence. It cannot.
What about
beyond the mind to
What about
understand.
when you think of a concept, let's say, of something that it doesn't exist, but you're planning like to build something, let's say, or something that, let's say like...
In essence, doesn't have to exist. It's a concept. As long as,
Right.
but it exists already. It exists in your mind.
It exists in the mind.
It's a
It
theory.
doesn't
You have
matter.
a theory.
It has
the mind,
existence
not
in the
an
mind.
actual existence.
No, not reality, but it has existence in some sphere of reality, which is the mental reality. In the mental realm, it exists. Any concept, a ghost. A ghost is a concept that has a certain definition. For example, a ghost is that which is. I don't know how you even want to define it. You know, and it is in the mind. There's a mental reality to it. You know what I mean?
So what do you?
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter. Okay.
Are you saying that God does not exist?
God exists, but we cannot understand
How he exists.
how he exists. Because his existence is not the way we understand even the pure concept of existence itself.
And he's there.
Yes.
He's there, but that's not the way we
That's not good
understand.
enough?
It is good
That's good
enough,
enough.
but it's not. It's beyond the way we can understand how it is. In truth, you see, it means that his existence is beyond our understanding of the concept called existence.
It's a higher level of existence.
Higher level of existence, whatever that is, we cannot understand that.
And that follows from what we said before that
That's why no one could make him.
Right.
Why is no creation? Because the way we understand pure existence itself, you could make it. You see, because when you think of existence, you think of the concept exists. You see, which means existence exists. What do you mean existence exists? That's the way we understand it. Existence, which is the concept or the entity or the something called pure existence itself, to be, exists. You see, so it exists means it possesses existence. Well, how can existence possess existence? You see. Well, that's the way we understand it, because even our understanding of existence is such that it possesses existence. You see, which means that the Banishim created existence itself. Our understanding of existence itself was created, because it was given existence.
So you're saying that there's something else there besides from what we understand as existence.
There's another existence. There is another type of
that
existence
we can't see.
which we cannot understand.
We don't have a word for it.
We don't have a word for it even. We cannot understand. It's beyond any type experience. There's no even describe or even imagine it.
Yeah, but I mean,
Let's sidetrack.
can there be any experience of it outside of the realm of the mind, though?
Of course, yeah, but we have Banishim exists, obviously.
I mean, can we on another level experience?
no, you can't. There's no way, because we are limited by mind.
But as the years went on, I'm just sidetracking for a second,
Yeah.
people have been learning a lot. And there are a lot of things that people can understand today that they couldn't before, because they didn't,
Yeah.
I don't know, they didn't work
I'll
on
give you an example.
They can
If a
only-
baby is born blind, let's say, and it's damaged, it's born with a damaged retina, so that it can never see in its life. It's born blind and it remains blind, right? Can you explain to it what the color red is?
I heard this one, no.
Can you explain what a color is?
No, I guess not.
Why not?
Because it's a concept that's irrelevant to me.
Can't
Why not?
experience it.
But
Can't experience it.
because red vision is an experience. It's not something you understand. It's something you experience. And either you experience it or you don't. If you don't experience it, it's beyond your being.
That's why you said that the Rebbe had to come down when you get a mountain Torah, but we should experience it.
Yeah, well, we experience this revelation.
Right.
His being, not his being, we
Right.
experience his intervention in reality.
Right.
By Nisim, by the overturning reality. We didn't experience him, we don't know what, you know what I mean? You understand? You cannot explain an experience. An experience, by definition, is not what you have, what you feel, or something like that, you know?
You went
Sensation, sound, a sensation, feeling, these are experiences, you see. Even thought is an experience, you see. You cannot, if someone doesn't possess the experience, you cannot explain it to him. It's not subject to words. It's the same thing. The existence of Rebbeinu is beyond our experience. It's not beyond it's beyond our capacity to know what that is. When we know, it means we can't even experience the thing. Like a baby born blind, what's red? Red? Well, it's a color, it's got wavelengths, it's got certain parts, it's a part of the spectrum, and it looks, what is that? What do you mean looks? I don't know what vision means. What is sight? I had the sensation of hearing. Yes. But you're saying that there's another kind of sense which is called sight? What is that? I could never explain it to him. Well, can you say, things have shape and size and color. What shape, size, and color?
They can
Oh yeah.
They can touch it.
They can touch it, yes, from a tactile sense, right? There's certain things they can touch. Yeah, they're right. But you see, they cannot understand the visual concept of size. There's a visual experience of size is different than the touching experience of it. It's still, like when I see a shape, it's not the same as when I touch it. It's a different experience.
Different sense.
Different sense.
One of the senses.
Yeah. It happens to be that the senses are coordinated. You see. So that what you see, you know, it's when you touch this thing and it curves around like this. You know that as you're touching, it's coming around. You know that the feeling is there's a curve here, right? And the sight tells you that there's a curve. So there's a corresponding between the curve in vision and the curve in feeling. But it's not the same thing. It's not the same sensation. It's different. It's just that they correspond.
We just blend them in.
We blend them because all five senses correspond. That's the way the Bria is made.
A blind person can differentiate between feeling it and
but he doesn't. What does it mean? He doesn't know
So
what vision means. That's what I mean. When we say,
So what happened by Matan Torah?
what?
What happened then?
Matan Torah simply was an intervention. The Rebbeinu Shem intervened in the Bria. We saw the Rebbeinu Shem. We didn't see him. We saw his effects. You see,
So
for example, no one has ever seen an atom. How do we know it's there? Because we feel its effects. That's how. No one has ever seen an electron. No one. But we know its effects. We know there's a concept called charge, and there's something called pressure, resistance, and we can see, we can measure it. We know. And even that, it's a constant of an electron, right? So even one electron. There's a machlokes in quantum physics, that what it is. They don't even know what it is. Is it a wave or is it a particle?
And the whole thing could be just fluid.
What is it? Consensus?
They just got together and decided to the dancing willingness.
Well, all of them. All of them. That's an also quantum physics, right? No one knows what it is. It's a wavicle. It's a combination. What do you mean a wave? What? They don't even. So it's not so different. What it is, it's a mathematical number.
So what happened by Matan Torah? What did Hashem?
The Rebbeinu Shem said, "I exist, and I'll prove it to you. I'll show it to you."
What did it show?
On your level. I'll show it to
On your level, perceptually. Suddenly we saw everything turn over.
understanding.
We saw the sea split and stand up. We saw everything go awry. So we saw that there's obviously the force that controls the world is beyond the world. That what we think is regularity in nature is not regular. How can we've been brought up, we see nature in a certain regular fashion. So we're accustomed to think that there's certain forces which govern it. Suddenly see that all nature it's cockeyed.
So they're just a bunch of Nisan physical things?
That's all we saw. We didn't see the Rebbeinu Shem. It's an experience, but it was a visual experience of a total irregularity of nature. So we therefore knew that there's a being behind nature which determines how nature will run. No, we didn't experience the
Why
being.
are you saying we?
I mean, Klal Yisrael, we. Klal Yisrael, I mean the Yidden.
We.
I'm sorry, I mean Yidden and then Yitzchak Mitzrayim.
No, can we talk about that? Or can we talk about something else?
Well, I'd really like to go on and go on the other thing, but you understand what I'm saying? This last thing is a subtle thing, but what it really means is that even our concept of existence itself was created.
I understand.
That's what it means. So if it's created, it means it possesses existence. That's not God. God does not possess existence, no matter what He is. He doesn't. He is the thing. What we say, He is existence, but even existence that I think possesses existence. Hence, that cannot be Him. So therefore, there is no concept which ties. You know what I mean? Do you understand? There's no concept. You can't touch Him anywhere.
It's because we define what existence is. That's the only reason why we have to say that there's something higher
Well,
than that.
we understand, the mind understands existence in a certain light, and it can only experience existence in a certain way. It cannot experience existence in a different way. Hence, it's beyond us. Since it's beyond us, there's no word that can even describe it, because a word, you see, is a description of a certain entity, and the Bunishim is not an entity. Because an entity by definition is something which possesses existence, an essence. He's not that at all. So what is He? There's no way we can know. We do not know that. We have no idea the nature of that reality, whatever that is. That's what I'm saying. Therefore, the greatest Hasagas Yichudah that you can reach, the Bunishim is such achdus, that His essence is not separate. He is the thing. He is existence. Existence is Him. He is pure existence. We have no understanding what kind of... That's what it is. That's the highest level of Hasagas. That's pure unity. You see what I'm saying? Pure oneness. There's no divisions to Him. There's no division of essence, existence. There's no division. These are all divisions. These are multiplicity. He's not. He's totally one in such a way. Let's see, that we cannot understand that kind of oneness. And that is the level at the Madrega in Hasagas Yichudah. The highest Madrega, I think, in Hasagas Yichudah. You can't go higher than that. Why? Because you've gone out of the human mind already. And the truth of the matter is, like I said last week, a Malach cannot understand them better than you. You see? Because no matter how high a Malach is, you see, he's still an entity which possesses existence. That's what he is. He has an essence, Gabriel. Gabriel is an essence. He's a certain Malach. His name is Gabriel, which describes a certain essence of what he is, what a shlichus is, or whatever he is. And that's what he is.
What does having it in an essence stop you from understanding something?
Because the essence is a description of the way something is, the way it exists.
So what? No, but if Hashem gave us some kind of a greater mind, maybe we would understand more.
No, there's no mind that can encompass. The only way you can understand the Bunishim is if you were that. If you are, because that's the nature.
Can you give me an example on earth?
Because the nature of instrumentation. You see, in order for us to understand reality, we experience it. We experience it through understanding it. We are not one with reality.
I understand how someone else can do something that I can't do.
I mean,
right? I can understand a lot of things that I have nothing to do with.
but you can only understand that.
Okay, let me explain this one thing. Okay, which is really going to come to the next subject we're going to do. How do we know something? There's something called reality out there, right? And there's something called me in here, right? What is my connection, me, to that what's out there? I experience it. How? I have sensations. I see it. I feel it. I hear it. You know what I mean? It's out there, and I know it. I understand it. So therefore, my connection to that which is out there is done through a device, a vehicle. You know what I mean? In this case, sensation, or even knowledge. You know what I mean? It's a device. It's an intermediary which connects me and that thing which reality. You know what I mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? It means that the Bunishim himself, but that means that the being is separate from the reality. You see, it means I'm separate from that which is out there. So since I'm also separate from the existence itself, that means there's two things. There's me and there's that which is out there. You see. Now the Bunishim is not. How does the Bunishim know things? He doesn't know things like we know. He doesn't have a mind that understands. You know what I mean? Because if he had a mind that understands it, he's not connected to reality. Which means that reality and him possess existence. They're separate from each other. Each one is an entity which possesses existence. How does the Bunishim know what goes on? He is reality.
He doesn't know it because he's smart.
He is the thing.
He is knowledge.
No, he is knowledge. He is the thing itself. So therefore the thing is his being. Now we cannot understand what that is. We can only understand, the knowledge of reality through instrumentation or through a means. We can't understand if the Hainuhach, if the thing itself. That doesn't make sense to us. It's beyond our reality.
Why is it beyond the law?
Because a malach is also, Gabriel is not Michoel. How does Gabriel know Michoel? He sees him, or not sees him with the eyes, in some way he experiences him, right? Since they're two different beings, how does one know the other? They're both talking to each other, right? How do they each know each other? Obviously, each one is what's called individuated. Each one is separate from each other. Therefore, each one must know the other one through an intermediate thing. An intermediate, some kind of sensation or whatever that is.
Some kind of
communication between the two.
Which is what? Which is limiting?
Which is limiting. Because they're separate. Two things which are separate mean that they can only have shaykh to each other through some connecting link. You see?
Which is given by the greater force.
Right. So therefore, how do they understand the Bonisham? Also through a connecting link, because the Bonisham is outside of them. So therefore, they understand him just like we understand the Bonisham. Except that they understand him on a higher level. But they cannot go beyond communicative links either. They are also dependent on...
They use their communicator.
Right. They use a phone and we use a telegraph. Whatever. I'm just... whatever
they
that is.
don't have a greater hasaga.
They have a clear hasaga in a way, but it's not a great hasaga. Qualitatively, it's not a different thing. Quantitatively, it's a much higher hasaga. But it's not a different kind of hasaga, because they also depend on communications.
So what does it mean that after you die that you all of a sudden understand what happened in your life?
It means you understand what happened in life.
You won't understand anything else about the Rebbeinu Shalom?
You will understand them just like Malachim understand them. You'll understand them because they communicate. For example, I'll give you an example. When you have a telegraph, right, that you want to hear something, and you want to give me a message, you send me a telegraph. How do I know it? I got dots and dashes, then I got to take the dots and dashes and translate it, whatever the story is. But it's a slow, primitive way to do it, right? I don't really hear you. You know what I mean?
Same thing, right?
But if I talk to you on the phone, then I hear you. I don't get a symbol of you. I hear you. You see, it's the same thing. While we're in this life and we're in the guf, we have shaykh tevuchnis through telegraphy. That's the best we can do. And when you die and you're in the shama and you have shaykh, you hear the stuff through the phone, but you still got to use the phone. You know what I mean?
That's the thing.
You see what I'm saying? you can't get beyond. That's what it is. The Gabriel knows Machoel, he knows the Bonisham because he used the phone. We know by the telegraphs. Even Machoel needs the phone.
What's in between a malach
and what?
Is a goof, malach and the God? There's nothing in between?
Well, no, there's nothing. There's the Bonisham and that which he made. And then that's it. And what he made has many different levels. Malachim, Neshamas, and so on.
Malachim being the highest.
No. We're going to get into that now. We're going to get into that now on also, okay? And that's what we'll do. You just have to walk over. These are very subtle concepts, I think. Now tonight I'm going to go into another thing which is going to also be very subtle, but I can't help it.
Might as well.
I can't help it. It's work to understand it. When you understand it, you get a reward.
To listen to the tape, it
it's very advisable to listen to the tape over and over and again, because you know what? If you really know what I'm talking about, you're going to really know something.
I can follow it.
You have to listen to it. You must listen to it.
So we're going to hit the second of another concept which is very subtle. Another thing.
Have some juice, drink something. Prepare yourself for aggression.
Yeah, I think you just get ready here.
It's really nice because it's more difficult to do it. Some people make it, some people don't.
That's our capacity.
But our capacity to experience is limited only to within the realm which we were created. So therefore, everything was also created within the realm of time, space, and substance. So this is what defines it. We can only experience that which is created.
Well,
that's why we can't understand God, because He is not created.
Well, because we can only understand the things through experiencing it, which is an intermediary. There's a communication. We cannot go beyond that. Nothing that was ever made.
How can we have anything to do? How can we be responsible to have anything to do with Hashem?
That's what we're
going to get into. I'm going to get into now. We're not to respond. You are responsible. You cannot understand him the way he is, but you're mechuyev to understand him to the top level of what you are capable of. But that's not the thing. The tachlis here is not. We're going to get into that. So, the tachlis of the bria is not just to understand him. You see, it's not. He is everything.
But what you said last week, the Hashem Havaya, is very descriptive, because that describes him.
He is ultimately Eyesh Eya.
Yeah.
Yud Kei Vav Kei. So he's existence itself. Up to now we've discussed a great deal about the nature of the existence of the Ribono Shel Olam, and we've tried to explore what we can understand about that existence itself. We have attempted to understand clearly, to the best way we can, the way his existence is different and distinct from ours. And by understanding that, we have a much better grasp of who we are in contrast to who he is. But it's important now for us to go on into the next subject, which has to do with why the world was created in the first place. We have explored the concepts that relate to the Metzius of the Ribono Shel Olam, because those concepts are very, very necessary in order for us to understand more clearly what our tachlis is. We cannot really do our tachlis or satisfy that tachlis if we do not understand the fundamental concepts and principles which relate to the Ribono Shel Olam's existence. Okay, well, let's just tonight is the fundamental question. The beginning of all things is the Ribono Shel Olam, and the way he is unto himself is called the Ein Sof. And like I said, we cannot understand the Ein Sof. We cannot understand what's called the Atzmusai in his substance. We do not understand. We cannot know the Ribono Shel Olam himself. What we do know, and what we can know, is his Ratzon, his will. That means his Maisim, that which he did. Cannot know the doer. We don't know himself. We only know, from when we observe what his activities, in terms of what his achievements are. Things he created, we see, and fundamentally, what the Torah says, and so on, when we say that one kasha, we say to ourselves, why did the Ribono Shel Olam make existence? Meaning our existence. Why? He doesn't need it, because it's inferior to him. He doesn't need it, because nothing which exists in our world can understand him. So our davening is nothing, our avoid is nothing. There's nothing, everything is nothing. There's no gibor connected him. Like it says, all the what do you mean there's a tehillah? There's nothing that,
Maybe you made it as a...
Which was the limit of that, and
What?
if a Kodesh Baruch Hu, is existence, and he knows the whole map, the whole plan, the whole scheme of things. One of us, before it happens, what's the whole concept then of Taiva, of Sitra Achra, of
that's what we'll get into. Obviously, what we're trying to do is build a system. But you can't understand one part of the system without slowly building the blocks.
Foundation.
Because we're trying to understand the system in its pneumius, not just the ideology, the Yitzhak, the Yitzhak. It just doesn't work here. What is the Yitzhak? What is the thing? And why is it there?
Or
what is the Yitzhak?
Like anything else, no?
Stop, but that's not so simple. What's its tachlis? And why is it there?
But why do I understand?
The first question I want to debate tonight is, why did the Ribono Shel Olam create the world? He obviously doesn't need it, because it's beyond it. You see, so why did he make it? Okay, for that answer, I'm going to give a very simple answer, which they give, Chazal will essentially give, Muhammad and so on, and I'm not going to go into it. Because to go into this thing in its depth would take us far afield and go into a chokhmah which you people are not familiar with. Essentially, the Ribono Shel Olam is said, possesses one other characteristics besides he possesses many characteristics. He exists, he is existence itself. He has power, he has chokhmah. See, but he doesn't possess any things outside of him. He is all these things. But we say the Ribono Shel Olam is pashut. He's simple. Simple means he's pure unity. You see, there's every quality which he has is not added or outside of him. He is the quality, since he is existence. Every quality has existence, so he is every quality. We don't know what that means. Let's see. Hashem is Chokhmah, He is power, He is life, He is these things. He is the thing itself. And all of these things is Him. So it's all one Zach, in an absolute Achdus that is beyond our mind. So that's what it means. The Hashem is Poshet. He's simple. It means that's what the word Shlemus. We say the Hashem is Shlemus. The word Shlemus comes from Shalem, whole. Whole. It means whole in its most perfect thing means where everything is the same thing. You see, that's what that's what Shalom means. The word Shalom means peace means where there's an Achdus, and instead of period or conflict, the thing is one. But we'll get into that later on, this concept. But that's what Shalem means. Whole. Whole means whole in its most fundamental concept means there are no components.
One piece.
Yeah, there are no components. It's one piece in such a way that it's not a bunch of particles or elements put together to make like one thing. It's totally one. Each thing is the other thing in total being. We cannot, like I said, we cannot understand that kind of a metzius. Fine, but there's something else what they say, Chazal. The Buddha is a toiv. He's good. He has what's called goodness. He doesn't have goodness. He is goodness. You see. Toiv b'meitiv. Okay. Now, well, let's go to toiv first. He is goodness. Now, what does that mean, good? Now, I don't want to examine that word. That word is a very difficult word to examine it. And what does it mean, good, in that sense? All I want to do is go one word from this, and then we're going to jump into the Bria, into a very subtle concept here. The nature of toiv, good. What does it mean, good? Good doesn't mean, when I say you're good, what's that mean, you're good? When I say you're good, means you have goodness. Goodness means that you do good. That's what goodness means. There's no such thing as goodness itself. You're good. Good. Let's make this good. Good means that you incline to be native, to give people hana.
The definition of being good by doing something.
Yeah, that's what it means. Good is defined in its action of doing good. Doing good means that there's a recipient, there's a makabel. You see. So therefore, if the Buddha is toiv, right, he's a mative. Because the definition of toiv means to be mative. That's how toiv is manifest. You see. So if there's a mative, this is the thing. The Buddha created the world in order to be mative, in order to give it good. That is the fundamental tachlis of the Bria. It emanates from the fact that the Buddha is toiv, and the essence of toiv is to be mative. That's what it means. Therefore, that's why the Buddha made everything, so that there can be a recipient or makabel for that hatava. And I'm not going to examine that too closely.
Why did he wait so long?
I see again. Yeah, I know.
Why a whole world? Why not just one person?
Well, hold on. We're gonna get that thing. When you say now, you see what you're really thinking. See, and I know where you're coming from. See, I know. No. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to do me one favor. That is an excellent question. It is, because if you want to be native, why didn't he make? Why didn't he do it? Why did he wait so long? I want you to hold that question, okay?
You're gonna get into it, though.
And I'm gonna answer that question, but I'm gonna answer it by evaporating the question, like I did with the thing when the first question is who made the Buddha Shalom? There's no kasha, and we're gonna do that the same thing. But that's a very good question. I want you to hold that, okay?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
According to what we said last week, and what you just said now about shlemus and achdus, how could anything outside of Hashem have an effect on what He does?
On what? Who does?
On what Hashem is?
It doesn't have an effect.
So how could He need to be mative?
Okay. That aspect I don't want to go into. That's a very good question. I will not answer that question. No, I will not, because I will not answer that question.
Like feeling good if you do
in a sense, because it says there that the tachlis of a person is to give nachas to the Rebbeinu Shalom.
Right.
Give nachas. What that means, the Rebbeinu Shalom needs nachas, or you're doing something for him. How could you be doing something for him? I won't answer that.
Are we ever going to get into it?
We'll get into that, but not now, because that has to do with how he relates to qualities. But I will get into what you asked, but not into that. Okay, but at this point, let us know this fact. The Rebbeinu Shalom is toiv, and therefore the definition of toiv is to be mative. That's the thing. Now, that doesn't mean he needs to be mative as such. It doesn't mean that. Why does it mean that? Let's leave that question aside. We can't answer everything with Yeshua. Okay? It's not a chasson on him. But essentially what a toiv is a toiv yametiv. Okay?
Did you answer why he created the world?
No,
What's that? We're answering this now.
Yeah,
The Bereshit therefore created the world in order to be mative.
Why?
Because that's what the definition of that. Since his midah, since his quality, he has a quality called toiv. Toiv, goodness, by definition, is doing good. That's how it's manifest. Therefore, doing goodness requires a recipient. You see.
So what is it? He has to practice all his qualities?
And his qualities must be manifest.
Why?
That's the net. The goodness is goodness is a quality which, in order to be manifest, requires a makabel.
But why does it have to be? Why? It's like you have to go through a list and exercise all the qualities.
No, that's part of your question. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to. That's an extremely difficult question to answer, and it goes off the whole, and but it is a question.
You know the answer for that?
What's that? To partially, but it's a very difficult question.
Is there an answer?
I'm also not clear. There are certain things you see. Let me explain also in terms of hashkafa, and we're going to get onto this later on. We're going to see other things and so on. There are certain things which, and that's the Chazal say this example. There are certain things. There are when things happen in the world. There are different reasons why things happen. You see, there's something which the Gemara says when the Gemara says when the Malachim say Zutov Zuschor, they ask the Banishim, why did God do this? So the Gemara says, the Banishim says, Moshe Rabbeinu, what do you call it? The Moshe Rabbeinu, when he went up to Mount Torah, the Banishim showed him the future, and he showed him Rabbi Akiva, right? He showed him Rabbi Akiva. So he said he saw Rabbi Akiva, and he saw Rabbi Akiva was able to learn from the crowns on the letters in the Torah, which So he was like, he said to him, well, this is incredible. He said, you got a man like this, and you're giving me the Torah? That's unbelievable. So then Moshe Rabbeinu said to Banishim, he said, show me what's going to be with this man. And then he looked and he showed him in the future, and he showed him that Rabbi Akiva died at the hand of the Romans, and they were ripping his skin off on the stake. So the Moshe said to him, Zut Torah Zuschor, how could this be? So the Banishim said to Moshe, Gzeira hi melefonai. This is my Gzeira. Gzeira, that's what I mean. Gzeira hi melefonai. Gzeira means melefonai, it is a Gzeira, it is a decree which I have decreed. There is no answer for you. That's what he said. It is my will. This is my will. Now you can ask Kasha, what is the nature of that kind of an answer? Does that mean we'll never know? What was he telling Moshe? No. That kind of thing we will know. We will know the answer to that. Yeah, we will know. We will know. We will know the answer. We will know things that I don't think even Moshe himself knew. Moshe himself, because it says, Akol Dova Yova Mishpat. Everything will be understood in Yom Mashiach. Everything. Why everything happened to everybody will be totally understood. You see. So the Gzerim will be answered later on. But there's certain things that will not be answered. Yeah, well, whatever. Well, there's certain things that cannot be answered. And that depends on where it came from. There's certain information which is contained within the Bria, within the world itself. We can understand this eventually. But there's certain concepts, or not concepts, there's certain information, there's certain things which the Bereshit decided in his Chokhmah, the way he knows things. We cannot understand that. Because for us to understand that means we must be him. You see what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? We cannot. That is beyond human knowledge for all eternity.
What's an example of that?
What is an example? Your question may be an example of that. There's another one or two. There's another thing which we'll get into tonight, which may be another example of that. I don't know if it's north of the border or south of the border. You know what I mean by the border? The Bereshit is north. We're south. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He in his world he's north. So there's certain information, certain understandings. Depends on where the thing was, where it emanated from. If it's south of the border, it means it's in our world. We can understand it. If it's north of the border, it's in his world. It's in the world of the Ein Sof. And it's on that level of chokhmah.
You think certain occurrences that happen
Yes,
are
certain reasons. Yes.
certain reasons.
Yes. I don't know if we... One of the things, for example, we can understand, like the neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu. Why was the neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu chosen for his tachlis? Why weren't you chosen for that tachlis? Each neshama has its own portion, its own chelek, its own tachlis. What determines what neshama...
It's going to go to whom?
What determines what neshama gets which tachlis? What determines that? Who?
Yeah, but when a person is born, you don't know. You know, it depends on what neshama he gets. That's what he's going to do.
I don't know. That's also it's questionable where that information comes from. But let's leave that. Let's simply say, and what you will follow. The one thing here is that the burnishing of the toiv, and to manifest toiv, you have to be a mative. That's what it means to be toiv. To be toiv means to be mative. It's part of the same definition. Hence, in order to be mative, the burnishing had to come on to what's called something which is separate from him. That's called in the Lashon a zulasoi. Zulas means besides. You see, if I say everything on this table, can we call it belongs to me, except this cup, zulas. Except. Zulas means except, besides. So therefore, in order to be mative, the Bnei had to create something besides him. That's called the zulasoi. That's all. And that zulasoi is the recipient or the makabel of the toiv, whatever that is. We didn't define what the toiv is. All we're simply saying is in very simple language that he's being mative. To be mative means you need a recipient. A recipient by definition, is not mative himself. You know what I mean? That's not mative. So therefore, the Bnei created that something which is besides him, another thing, and that we call, for this purpose, we call that a neshama. You see, there's nothing else that was made. The only thing that was made was suddenly he created a being, and that being is neshama. That's it. And that being is, he intends for that being to become the recipient, or to be makabel this hatava.
What is a neshama?
We'll get into that. Does everyone understand what I've said now? We will not examine this any closer. Let's go on. What is a neshama? What more really fundamental is a zulasai? What is the essential criteria of a zulasai? You know, that's the question here. Okay. In order to do that, we're going to approach it from two angles. Okay, the simplest angle.
Also, one other thing that has to be is there really can never be a destruction of the world, because then that quality falls away, right?
What quality?
The toy. It can never be. It always has to be.
Yeah, but it could take different forms.
There would be a recipient for the.
You don't have to have
destruction of the neshama.
You don't have to have. You can have neshama, but you don't have to have a world.
But the neshama can.
What he's saying is very true. What you point out a very good point. That since the Bnei is existence, it must be, just like he must be. And if he is toiv, the toiv must be. So therefore, it must be that Dr. Watson's mukuyim in the end.
You were defining for the fact that we are, which is mative in relationship to mative. Always was.
The action called hatava is like that's why I didn't want to examine. Where is that action called hatava? Is that part of the world, or is it part of the Bnei Shalom? Where does it? That's the bridge, and that's a very difficult thing to examine at this point. And I don't want to. That's all I'm simply saying is we're accepting the fact that there's an action in the Bnei Shalom called hatava, and he's being mative. Now the truth of the matter is that in essence, and this department, the Bnei is not really a toiv, and because toiv, the way we understand it, like we understand it, is the fact that he has to be mative, like there's something wrong with him, like he's a chson in him. That's obviously not true, you see. So we're not examining the concept. It's obviously the concept as we have it is not a good one. It's not a pure one, you see. Because what is the Bnei relationship to hatava and to toiv? You see what I'm saying? What does it mean that he's toiv, and what does it mean that he wants to be mative? Does he have to be mative? I mean, if he has this quality, it means that it must be hatava. So therefore, what does that mean? That he himself has a need? I don't want to examine that. You know what I mean? We simply would say at this point that he's a toiv, and the essence of a Tov is to be mative, and hence the world came into being in order to satisfy that requirement called Hatova. You see, now what we're going to do is examine the world itself. What had to be there to satisfy the requirement? We will not examine the Hatova itself. That sort of thing. Okay, now when we look at the neshama, we say to ourselves, what is a neshama? Really, what is it? What is this being called a neshama? Fundamentally, it's like this. Everything which exists, how does it exist? It has an essence, right? I'm talking about everything which exists in reality, not in mind, but in reality, exists in what way? It has a substance. You know what I mean? It has a chomer to it, a material. It's composed of a certain material. Everything. There's nothing in this world that it doesn't have some kind of material. Isn't that true? Existence is done through materials. That which exists in a substance of some sort. It inheres in a substance. You see what I'm saying?
What about like thoughts?
Thoughts also have a substance. They do, but that substance is leave thoughts for a second go. We'll get the thoughts in a minute. Just leave that go for a second. All physical objects have substance, right? But when we examine the nature of substance, we see an interesting thing. That the nature of substance is either solid, liquid, or gas. You know what I mean? So we see that the quality of the substance itself can change. They're all physical substances, but somehow, you know what I mean? The nature of the substances somehow change. Now, there are substances which cannot be sensed or known. Like, for example, energy. Can you sense electrical energy? No.
You can measure it, and you can
do it. You can operation. You can measure it. Could you see energy? What? Confirm it. Can you see energy? No. Well, you can't even see air, but you can feel air. You see, but you can't feel energy. You can't feel energy. You see. So there are things that cannot even be sensed. They're not physical sensation. Now, there are certain things even more subtle than energy that cannot be sensed at all. You see, because they have nothing to do with the physical world. That is called the substance which cannot be sensed whatsoever by a physical being is called ruchnius. Spirit. Spirit is a substance. That's all it is. Except that it's a substance which is so subtle in terms of the way it exists. It's substance that it cannot be sensed or known by by the five senses. That's what it is. A malach. A malach is a being which is composed of ruchni. He's composed of a substance called ruchnius. That's what he's made of. You see. What is that substance? We cannot know. Why can we not know? It's not that we cannot know in the way that we cannot know of the God. No, that's something else. We eventually will know what a malach is made of. But now we can't know. Why? Because we have no way to sense the substance. You see what I'm saying?
But we can theorize it.
We can theorize, yeah, but we cannot. We have no idea what the substance is because it's not subject to sensation. Now it's not. That's what it says. No man can see me and live. It means no man can see ruchnius and live because it's beyond sensation. But someday v'choy. But after choy, yeah. You see.
So according to what you're saying now is that we can't because we can't comprehend it. We won't be choy, so then we will. So
yes.
We'll be added a new brain, some additional part to our brain will be added, so we'll understand that.
No, not an additional part of the brain.
The brain's dead already.
The brain, not quite the brain. The body is dead, but the neshama. Wait a minute. What is a neshama? A neshama is a being. It's a being that is composed of a certain kind of substance. The substance that is composed of is called ruchni. A malach is another type of being, which is also composed of ruchni. And that's it.
Malach has neshama?
What? No, malach is not a neshama. It's a being. It's a being. It has substance. It has certain ruchnius. It's composed of something, and it's structured in a certain way. A malach has structure. For example, take a human being. A human being, the body has structure. There's an anatomy and there's a physiology. It has a it's skeletal structure. It has organs and it's put together, and it has a dynamics. There's different operations of the body, right? It has what's called structure. You see what I'm saying? It's composed of substance, and that substance is put together in a certain way called structure. A malach is the same thing. A malach is composed of certain material called ruchni, and that material is put together in a certain way. We don't know what way. We don't know the physiology and anatomy of Gabriel. We don't know. But Gabriel has a physiology and anatomy in his way. Malachim, We don't know the book, but there is a book called The Physiology and Anatomy of Malachim. Except that book is not here to learn. That book exists in the place where they are. You see. And their bodies, and they're constructed according to laws too. You see. Gabriel can no more transcend his being than you can transcend yours. You see. What do I mean? You see, your body, for example, your structure means, and your musculature means, allows you to lift certain objects up to a certain weight. Can you lift 50 tons? No. Cannot. You cannot go beyond your structure. Gabriel cannot go beyond his structure. You see, he can do certain things. He can get from one place to another, or he can do certain shluchsim, but he can't go beyond that. Michael is higher than Gabriel, meaning that Michael is more powerful than Gabriel. He's a higher malach. He's stronger, but he also can't go beyond his being. So we understand the very same thing. We have to abstract or generalize the concept of being. Everything which exists through a substance, and that substance is put together in a certain way called a structure. You see what I'm saying? The difference between us and malachim is that they differ in the substance of what they're made of and in the way they're put together. You know what I mean? Their being is composed or operates in a different way. And that's it. Do we understand this? A neshama is another kind of being. It's a being. It has a certain substance called ruchnius. It's similar to a malach. Not exactly similar. And it's put together in another way. You see. For example, there's something in zoology called vertebrates and invertebrates. You know, there's certain, for example, look at an ant. Compare an ant to a chimpanzee. They're very different beings. You know, a chimpanzee is a totally different kind of goof than an ant. Do you know? One has a backbone, one doesn't, however you want. They have many different things and so on. You see, it's the same thing. A neshama is one thing, a malach is another. They're different gufim. A malach also has a guf, but that guf is composed of a different substance and it has a different structure. Do you see what I'm saying? But it also has a guf. It has a guf in the sense that it exists through a certain substance in a structure. That's what guf means. The word guf, in its most general word, means, it doesn't mean a body, you know what I mean? It means that through which you exist, or through which you are. And you are nothing more than your substance in a particular way, or structure. That's you. Do you see this clearly?
That's not the way we normally
see
the guf.
Right.
No, yeah, it's not the way. But the word guf could be generalized, you know what I mean? That the word guf also applies to malachim in their way, and a neshama also it has what's called a guf, but you don't call the neshama by guf. Guf, the normal word guf generally applies to the human body. Right. You know, to this kind of substance called gashmius, in this way. You see, with the heart and lungs, there's a digestive system, there's a circulatory system, there's a nervous system, a muscular system, skeletal system, and so on. You know, but in their way, malachim have their own systems. And they're limited by their own systems. Okay? Do we understand that? Next thing. The Torah says, or Hashkafa says, Kabbalah says, that basically, substance itself, the substance, there are 4 different types of substances. Each one being more subtle than the next. There are 4 types of chomrias, or substances. You know what I mean? The lowest type of substance is us. You see. Something which exists on this world cannot sense or know a substance which is more subtle than that. You know what I mean? Can't. That which exists on a world above, which has a substance, a malach, which is above us, can see us. It can be aware of us. Because that which is more subtle in substance can be aware of that which is less subtle in substance, but not vice versa. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, there is something which is even more subtle than a malach. There are beings which are more subtle than malachim. Now, the world in which we live on, meaning the substance that we're made of, is called the Olam Asiya. That's what it's called, the world of Asiya. All things in the world which exist here exist on this world, meaning that we all have a certain kind of substance in a given structure. And that's what the world is. It's Olam Asiya. The world above it, meaning that the substances and the structures in that world, right, is called the Olam Yetzirah. That's what it's called. Who lives in that world? What? Malachim. Malachim are in that world. You know what I mean? They are aware of the things which have the substance is harder, more coarse. You know what I mean? But we cannot sense them. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? It's very simple. We haven't gotten the tough stuff yet. Now, there happens to be a world more subtle than them. The substance and the structures are even more subtle and totally different. That's called the Olam Bria. Now, there are certain things which exist on that world. And I'm familiar with only one thing. The one being which exists in that world is called the Saraponim, Matat. That's the name of a Malach who's called the Saraponim. He is the chief Malach. He's the highest of all the Malachim. Now, since he lives on this world, when I mean lives, I don't mean live. Since he's composed of that level of substance, he is aware of everything below him. But Malachim have no shaykhs to understand him. You see, not that they can't understand him like we can't understand the Bnei Shalom. They cannot sense him. If when Gabriel talks to Michael and says, you know, Matat, they talk about something they have no experience of.
Just like we talk about
Malachim, well, we have no experience of what they are. You know, they can sit behind this Morgan and they can never understand who Matat is. Why? Because they lack his substance. They cannot experience him. Now there's a world which is above him, and that's called Atzilus.
Who?
Atzilus, Olam Atzilus, the world of emanation. That world has all the substance. Now you figure, as you go further and further back, the substance becomes purer and purer and purer in a way. You know what I mean? It's like you take something and you refine it, and then you refine it and refine it. You know what I mean? So that the substance and the structures are extremely pure. What do I mean pure? I mean in terms of ruchnius. All these things are levels of ruchnius, but each level is pure. What lives in the Olam Atzilus? Malachim don't live there. They don't even know what it is.
What does Atzilus mean?
That's means to emanate from. To emanate. It's called Olam Atzilus. That's what it's called. Forget about that. It's called because that's the world which is next to Bnei Shalom. Okay. Now, Malachim cannot know. They can't even know what's above it. What about the Saraponim himself? He's on the third one. Right? He cannot understand what's above there. He has no shaykhs to it. What is above there? Neshamas. That's what a neshama is nothing more than a being whose substance is from the world of Atzilus.
So neshama can understand everything below.
Yes. And nothing can understand the neshama up but a neshama itself. Who is higher, a neshama or a malach?
Neshama then.
Exactly. Now, you understand what I'm saying? Now, there is a world which is above that world. It's above Atzilus.
Why is it standing in that?
What? We'll get all this today. Okay, I'm just letting you one time. I want to give a clear understanding of what we're talking about, you know? We don't deal with hazy concepts here. Wait a minute. There's a world called even above that world. No. That's called, in Russian, it's called the Olam of Adam Kadmon. It's a world, right? That world has a substance which is so pure. It's the next level above that is the Bnei Shalom. Now, but the next level is not another level.
Yeah,
it's a jump from, that's it. But the first thing, when the Bnei Shalom created the world, the first substance he made is called the world of the Adam Kadmon. That's what it's called, the primeval man. There's no man that lives there. It's called the Adam Kadmon. Who lives there? A neshama. No, neshamas live there too.
Neshamas live in two.
Yes.
Two different.
The neshama really. Now I'll get to the neshama in a second. The neshama lives on that world. That's where the neshama comes from. I'll get to what I mean. It comes to know. I'll get to a second. The neshama comes from that world. You see, what is that neshama called? That was the first thing that the Bnei Shalom made. Obviously, because it's the first substance which he made. You see what I'm saying? That substance is the thing. Now that substance has structure and being, obviously.
Now it's coming down.
Yeah, and from then it comes down. So therefore Malachim are 3 levels down. Malachim don't begin to master. And they can't even master what's beyond the level beyond them. They have no shaykhs to that world. The Saraponim has no shaykhs to that world. So you can imagine how high that world is.
Even
now,
neshamas don't have shaykhs.
Oh, wait a minute. What lives on that world? Neshamas. What do I mean by lives? What I mean live? I don't mean to live there. Exist. What beings exist on that plane means that they have the substance and structure of that plane of existence. Neshamas. The neshamas that possess that are called Yechida. They're called Yechida. That's the name of the neshama. That's the Yechida. Now, the neshama is a very peculiar thing. The neshama of a person. Why? Because the neshama of a person, you see, is really a combination of 5 different pieces hooked together. What do I mean 5 pieces? For all of these worlds. Then a piece of the neshama which has the substance of that world is called Yechida. The piece of the neshama, there's a piece of the neshama which comes from the world of Atzilus. It's underneath that. And it's connected to that in some way, like a chain. But obviously you go from one level of existence to another. How that happens, I don't know. But there's a connection. That's called Chaya. The piece of the neshama which comes from the 3rd level down, which is called the Olam of Bria, which is the same level as the Sa'aponim, right, is called neshama. It's called, but it's specifically with neshama. The piece of the neshama which corresponds to the substance of the malachim on the Olam Yetzirah is called ruach. And the piece which corresponds to Asiyah Nefesh. You ever hear the lashon Nefesh Ruach Chaya? You ever hear that thing? You ever hear that lashon? Sometimes you'll see this form. It says Nefesh Ruach Neshama Chaya Yechida. I don't know if you ever heard that. These are 5 names really, but what they mean, they refer to the 5 other parts of the neshama, and they're all connected. What's the difference in each part? Each part refers to a different level of a substance, and they're all connected.
Each neshama has these 5 parts.
Yeah, every neshama. A neshama is really these 5 parts.
The neshama comes from 2 different stages. Now you're saying that the neshama has a part
No,
with more than 5 parts.
yeah. In a neshama, in actuality, is a combination of 5 different kinds of substances.
In other words, what you're saying is when it comes down to earth, it goes through these 5 worlds and it picks up a piece and then it comes down.
In a sense, but I don't want to get to that. What I'm basically saying is that it's like the body's composed of solids, liquids, and gas, right? It's composed of substances of 3 different types, in a way. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. The neshama itself is not one whole thing. It's composed of substances of different aspects, combined together.
But where does it reside by having all these 5? It has all these 5, let's say, qualities.
How does it reside? That's what it is. You know what?
But where does it reside? Does it reside on the top level?
It's right in the place, but no, each piece of it resides on its sphere.
Each piece
resides in each level. It's part of each level.
Alright, so the neshama is a combination of all these 5 things.
Okay. Where did we get this from?
Where is this done? Well, this is Hashkofa and Kabbalah. But this is Yedua.
How does someone understand that?
Okay, this is fun. How does he know this?
How do we know this?
What do you know?
If you came off to the Malach, right? How do you understand that there are 5 levels up?
I mean, how we know the different? We never sense them. How do we know they're malachim? The Torah says this is from the Torah Shabbat Peh. You see, Kabbalah Hashkofa. That's how we know these things. You know, so I'm trying to explain it very clearly. Now, do we all understand what neshama is? Right? We basically understand what it is. We do not understand what it is, because I want to go into another piece of it, which is far more subtle than what I said now. What I said now, you can hear anywhere. You see, what I'm saying now is a totally different kind of thing, and it's a different kind of concept. Okay, what does the Banishim do? He wants to be mative, right? He wants to be mative. In order to be mative, he needs an object separate from him, right? To be mative. What does that mean? He makes an object separate from him. What does the Zulosoi mean? You see, what does it really mean? Does anyone have an idea? What does it mean? He makes an object separate from him. What does that mean?
He takes a piece from him, he creates that.
No, can't take a piece from him.
It's not
Can't. We're not like him. There's no shaykhs there. We're not. Who?
He gives something in it.
He creates some substance.
It says Nases Odom Ketamenu Ikidus. What does that mean? Ketamenu Ikidus. What is that?
First, he had to create a Salem.
What is that? What is that? What does that mean? What is? There's something here which is very strange. Up to now, all I was talking about is substances in certain structures, in different levels of substances. But the neshama is far more beyond that. It's far beyond that. There's something else. You see.
Maybe it's referring to the neshama.
It is referring to neshama. It is. That's what it means. It's referring to that. Now, what we've said is that the essence of the Hatova The one that the Baruch Shem wants to give this Hatova is the Neshama, not Malachim, nobody else, only the Neshama. The Neshama is the object of the Bria. He is the Tachlis of all creation, nothing else.
There were no Malachim at this time.
There was no Malachim, there was nothing. You see, that's the thing. Now, what I'm going to say now, it's a Tachlis of creation. Because that's the thing, we're saying that the reason why the Baruch Shem created the world was to be mative. Who fulfills that Tova? The Neshama. That's the way it is. There is no other being that the Baruch Shem is concerned with. Everything was created because of the Neshama. That's it. But the one that the Baruch Shem has eye on is the Neshama. Now, well, we'll get to what is our relation to the Neshama. We'll get to that in a second. Leave that go. Okay? Leave that go for a second. Now, what exactly is that? Okay. What is Zula say? What does it mean? What? Zulata means besides him. What does it mean besides him? What does that mean? And this is what I want to talk about. What does that mean besides him? There are two types of beings. Now, when we look at this world, the entire world itself, right? We see something like this. There are two types of beings in the world. Two types. What is the difference? If I look on the table, I have a bottle, I have a tape recorder, I have all these different things. No, you're throwing words. Forget about it. I'm not interested. What is the difference? Heschel Khan is sitting here. What is the difference between a tape recorder, a bottle, and all these things, and Heschel Khan?
Inanimate objects supposed to have.
One second. One at a time. One at a time. One is different.
One is leaves and one is just a object.
It doesn't live. It doesn't live.
Which one? Different purposes.
One lives and one doesn't live. That's one difference.
Different.
What about Heschel? What about Heschel Khan and a plant?
One talks. One is in the percent of Medaber.
One is in Medaber. He talks.
One object created the other one. One object created the other one. One object created the other one.
What is Das?
Comprehension of surroundings.
The ability to comprehend.
The ability to comprehend. The truth of the matter is this. And this is you have to think. This is the concept. What is Das? When the Baruch Shem was there, right? Is the Baruch Shem aware of himself? Yes. Right? He's aware of himself. He knows that he is. You see. Is this bottle aware of itself? No. What the Baruch Shem did was an incredible thing. There is nothing in all existence which equals this creation. I can't understand how the Baruch Shem could even create such a thing. What the Baruch Shem created was another self. He created another being which is aware of itself, and when it turns around and says to the Baruch Shem, you, me, the capacity of self to be aware of oneself, you see, is an absolute separation from the Baruch Shem.
Well, you are aware of yourself.
What?
Yes,
I know. That's what the Neshama is.
So what's so difficult to be aware?
Because the Baruch Shem created something which is totally separate from him. But what he created, he didn't create an object, you see, which is separate from him, in the sense of another body. He created a type of being
that is aware of itself.
But you know what those words mean? When you say a being is aware of itself, what you're saying is that there's a being who looks at the Baruch Shem and sees him as a separate being and it knows itself as a separate being. That kind of being is totally different from every other being in the world. Every other being in the world is an object. You see, it's simply a body. It's a substance with a certain structure. That's all it is. It's an object. You see, it's a goof of some sort in whatever way. But a neshama is a being which not only has substance and it has structure, whatever it is. You know what I mean? But it also has what's called self, you see, in the sense that it has a nakuda, or it has a certain aspect where it is aware that it is. That is a dimension which is beyond its substance and its structure. Okay. You see what I'm saying? It's beyond what it's made of and how that thing is put together. It's a nakuda which is so subtle. You see what I'm saying? which makes the thing to be a totally independent thing. You know, it's an incredible thing. The Banishim could have made an object which is simply substance and structure. You see, that's a being which is separate from him. But it's a machine or something, an object. But the Banishim made a subject, not an object. The Banishim made another being which has self-awareness, which means it's beyond its body or something. It knows that it is. You see.
On a lower level.
Yeah, whatever level. No, it knows. No, but in that sense, it is totally separate from the Bnei Shalom. No, as far as it's concerned, the neshama is one thing at this point. Forget about the priest. It's one thing. Look at the neshama itself. It's one thing, right? The neshama is a being which not only is composed of a certain substance in a certain structure, right? But everything is composed of that. But it knows that it is. So it has a level of being or dimension which transcends its very body or its very substance. You see, in that way, it's just like the Bnei Shalom. Because fundamentally, the Bnei Shalom is also a self. You see, forget about what he's made of, what he is. Fundamentally, the Bnei Shalom knows that he is. That's his Nakuda. You see, and he made another being which knows that it is, and that it is. You see, its sense of self is totally individual. It and it alone only possesses it. Nothing else in all creation possesses it. You see, it's something which is totally private. There's one thing that you have that no one else has, and that's your sense of self, your I, your sense of I. Nothing else in all existence has that. Does it?
I'm a big shot there, yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? There is nothing in existence which possesses this concept of I. You see, this awareness of me, I. Whatever that is, there's nothing. It's totally unique. You see, it's totally unique and it's totally separate from all existence. And it's totally separate even from the Bnei Shalom himself, because even he doesn't share it. You see?
What do you mean he doesn't share it?
He doesn't possess it in a way. He doesn't share it. He made it. It was. And it's capable of looking at him independently, just like he looks at it independently. He also has an I. The Bnei Shalom says, I am. I know that I am, in whatever way he is.
His I encompasses the other I.
But that's something else. I'm not concerned with the material. The point is, the point of the existence of the person, of the neshama, which says I, you see, is something which is separate from everything else in all existence, including the Bnei Shalom. Why? Because that's why I can turn around to the Bnei Shalom and say, you. What does you mean? You means that you're a being which is not I. You see, I and you are two different things. Or how can I say you? You see what I'm saying? There's a subtle thing. There's a nakuda. There's a thing here. You see what I'm saying? When I turn around and I say you, it means I'm referring to something which I don't have. You know what I mean? It's something which is totally separate from me. You see what I'm saying? And what is that you? That you is your sense of self. You possess your sense of self in a way which nothing else possesses it. I possess my sense of self in a way that nothing possesses of it. You see what I'm saying? When I turn around, when the neshama turns around and says to the Bnei Shalom, Ata, you. You see, what the neshama is saying is that he's looking at the Bnei Shalom, he's looking at the self of the Bnei Shalom, you see, which is separate from his sense of self, which is able to say you and I. They're totally different things. That's what it means to be a Zulasai. It doesn't mean to be an object or being which is separate from him. You see? It doesn't mean to be a guf which is outside of him. You see what I'm saying? Fundamentally, what a Zulasai means, it's a self which says you, me. Because that's something that you and I do not share. You see what I'm saying? That's absolute separateness. So when the Bnei Shalom wanted to create an object, a being which is capable, you see, of receiving the Hatova, he had to create a subject. Because only a subject can be aware that it's receiving Toiv. You see what I'm saying? Does a bottle know that it's receiving Toiv? You know? Does a being, any being which is inanimate or even animate, which doesn't have a sense, know that it's a makabel of Toiv? No. Only something which has an eye can understand I am having Toiv.
Otherwise you wouldn't be maitiv. Otherwise you wouldn't be maitiv.
How can
you do Toiv if somebody doesn't, if you don't...
You do a toiv and the person doesn't know that it's
No,
it's not toiv.
The nature of toiv means to do good. To do good.
The biggest midah of chesed is to do it in the Araman shouldn't even know that he received it.
No, the biggest midah of chesed is to do it for chinam, not to do it. That's because of embarrassment. That's something else. The point is that if I say to you, I want to do something good for you, and let's say I do something good for you, right? The Ummah knows that something was done good for him, but he doesn't know who did it. But he's able to experience the toiv. He's marked that there's something toiv happened to him. Toiv is something that you appreciate, you experience. You see, but in order to experience, you must be a self. Only a self can experience. A bottle cannot experience anything. It is.
If it's connected, then
a bottle is. That's all. It cannot experience. You see what I'm saying? A person can experience because a person possesses self. So in order for the Banishim to be mative, he has to create a subject, a self. Because only a self can appreciate the fact that it's getting something good. It can appreciate goodness coming to me.
If it's connected to him, then it won't be. Then it's
mative. Does everyone? Do you see what I'm saying? It's subtle. It's another subtle one.
So what about cats? I mean,
who?
Does the cat have an neshama?
Well, I mean, animals? No, they don't.
Can they experience?
In a certain sense, but not the way humans can. Malach, but cats, in a certain sense, they have aspects of self, but not like humans. Now, a neshama isn't the only being which has self. There's another thing which has self, just like a neshama. What else? Who? Yeah, that's zicha. He is the essence of self. That's what the Banishim is. He is the essence of self. He is self. Existence and self, it's all one. Whatever self is, whatever that Nakuda is, he is that. Oh, Malachim too. That's what it says. Not says Adam Kitzalmenu. Just like we ourselves, let us make another self.
That's what it means to command.
That's Selim Likim, the Demus Likim, in a sense, is the capacity of self. It's an aspect of being, or the type of being, you see, which can experience. You see, that's pure self, and that's incredible how the Bnei Shalom could have made that, because pure self is separate from the Bnei Shalom by definition. How was the Bnei Shalom able to make something which is totally outside of him? You understand? No. You understand the kasha? Well, that's phenomenal. So that is the greatest thing. I don't care. Like there's an expression: the mind which encompasses the universe is greater than the universe which encompasses the mind. You never heard that? The mind or the seichel which can understand all the bria is bigger than the bria which encompasses. Why? Because the bria is only big in terms of quantity, but the mind is a different quality. It's a different dimension than the bria. The suns and all the billions and hundreds of billions of suns and galaxies are all nothing more than different. They're only in different size or in power and intensity. But the mind differs. It's a different type of being. It's a self. You see, that being which is able to masig the bria is bigger than the bria which encloses it. Because the bria cannot be masig the self. It only contains it. You see a difference?
Right.
That's the difference between an object and a subject. A subject can experience, can be aware. An object cannot be aware. It just is.
The room is an object which is bigger, right?
That's all. It encloses you.
Right.
But is it bigger? No. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So I can so the fact that the Banishim creates a bria, a world, which is an object, I can understand. But how to create a self? That's such a subtle thing. That's unbelievable. That is the greatest creation that he ever did. Everything after him doesn't parallel. The ability of the Banishim to create another self is incredible. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
You see, that's what an Adam is.
That's what a neshama is.
Neshama. I'm confused with that. But you see why it has to be this type of being?
Right.
Because only this kind of being
can be makar tov.
What?
That's why you can't talk to Shonora. They are somebody from that creation.
But that's but the other reason besides other reasons. But fundamentally, you must have a self, because only a self could be a mutav. Only a self can appreciate good, because goodness is an experience. The only thing that can experience is a self. An object can't experience anything, so how can it receive good? You see what I'm saying? So once you say that the Banishim wants is a toiv and he wants to be mative, he must create
that which is capable of being, experiencing good. That's a self.
But if we understood Hashem more than we're able to, then we wouldn't appreciate it. Because we would be so much more connected and we wouldn't feel so much separate.
No, but you couldn't. Hatova by definition must apply to something which is separate from him.
No, but I'm saying the only reason people feel themselves because they don't feel such a strong connection with Hashem. If Hashem was more visible, they wouldn't feel so separate.
That's not true. There's always something which there's a certain thing, or else it ceases to be a neshama. You see, the thing which separates a being from God is the fact that it has a self. Once that I, that sense of I, is lost, it ceases to be a being. It's just an object. You know what I mean? It's lost, in a sense. You see what I'm saying? The thing which distinguishes you from the Bnei Shalom is the fact that you are an I, which knows, which separates him from you, and you're aware of him. You see, that's the fundamental thing which that is a zulosoi. It's a subtle concept. But it's a Meshunadik creation. Mamash Meshunadik. To do that, if you think into it, you will understand how incredible such a thing to do. You can make something, a guf, another object. How do you make another self? Something which is absolutely separate from you. How? With what? You know what I mean? How do you reach that? How do you reach something which is totally beyond you? You see, Ozulot say that self is beyond the Bnei Shalom in a sense. How does the Bnei Shalom reach that? To create something beyond him in such a way. That's an unbelievable thing. You see what I'm saying? But yet he did that. Because obviously there's an aspect which is not beyond. But we cannot understand that. Because the borderline between his self and our self is that north of the border or south of the border? I don't know. You see what I'm saying? You see, what we're doing is we are now talking about the marginal ideas, those concepts which are mamish the border between the Bnei Shalom and the Bria. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And the thing can tip either way. You see. Now, I don't want to deal with that. Those are very difficult issues. You see. But basically, what we're saying is that we have this kind of thing called a self. And you must understand this. If you don't understand this, you can understand nothing after this. I mean it. You can understand, like everyone understands. You know what I mean? Because the essence of later on, you cannot begin to understand what the Tachlis Adam is unless you understand what an Adam is. You see?
So, wouldn't it be like, let's say, take an example of a king, a dictator, right, who kills people who don't do what he wants, right? Obviously, the people working right under him would be they would lack a sense of self.
They don't lack self, they lack will. But they don't lack awareness, they lack the desire to revolt. That's will. They lack desire or want.
But if they do everything that this guy wants, and they don't have any choice no matter how they...
But they are aware.
They're aware that they are.
They're still aware that they are.
They are aware.
Self is simply nothing more than the fact that you're aware that you are. And that is. And that there's an I. There's a part called the I. I. The word I.
Well, if you never do what you want, after a while you lose that, no?
No. What you lose is your self-respect.
You say
you lose
I
your will. You lose your freedom. You know what?
You don't say that there's no I. You say that I is worthless.
The I, the sense of you doesn't evaporate. It's just a sense of being able to do anything evaporates. You feel like a victim, like a powerless person that can't do a thing. That evaporates. But the sense that you are doesn't evaporate. You see what I'm saying? The sense of awareness is always there. That is fundamentally you. And nothing else in all existence is that. That's something you have which nothing else has. In a sense, including the Bnei Shalom. But it's only in a sense, because it still says Einoid Milvadai. So obviously there's a line here, there's a margin here. What that margin is here we will not discuss. But as far as we're concerned, it is the most the greatest sense of separate being that's possible, you see, this notion of self, or Zulasai. So we have to go slow, because these are each concept. The subtle concept. You got to grasp it, and then we go on. At the beginning, it moves heavy. It's like sluggish, because you got to chop that thing.
Is that what we are, people?
Yeah, yourself, right? You are subjects. What I call a subject. You're not object. You're not an object. Your body is an object. But your being, the inner thing of your being, is a being which knows itself.
Your body is a recipient
of subject. You everyone understand what I'm saying here? Okay. I think we'll cut it here. We're going to finish the last point. We're gone. What does this lead on to? What goes on?
This is really in the middle.
Yeah. I've only started it. You see what I'm doing? I'm building piece by piece. You see? You can understand the concept of self well because you understand the concept of yichud. You see now it helps? See that? Mm-hmm. Since last week we spoke about the achdus of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Now how nothing can be. Suddenly we see therefore the one thing therefore that can exist outside of him in a sense is self. Nothing else can exist outside of him because he is everything else. You see, in a way, you see, and that's what it is. Each thing lens makes it a little clearer to understand. Now, there are many fine points here which we're not going into. It is only my tachlis in the shum is to give you an overworked framework. I'm not going to go into all the detail, but it's to give an overview of the whole system, how it starts, in this way. And we have to take it piece by piece.
Did you explain how it's being rated by having created everyone?
No. I didn't explain what the process of Hatava is. I didn't know. All I simply explained was the first prerequisite for Hatava. In order for Hatava to be established, you have to have a Zulasai. And you must have a Zulasai who is capable of experiencing that Hatava. Hence, you must have a Zulasai who is a self.
So we're going to discuss what that is?
Next week we'll begin to discuss what the Hatava is. And it's a very important shir next week. Very, very important. What is this Hatava?
Where is the shir next week?
Next week we'll have it here.